Today's gospel lesson is short, but it is still rich in possibilities. Matthew chapter 24, which we just kind of read the end of. Matthew 24 begins what scholars call the Olivet Discourse. It's a place where Jesus talks to his closest followers in eschatological terms, meaning he's talking about the end of the age. In this case, he's talking about the ends of two ages. He's talking, in previous verses, he's talking about the end of the temple. And then he moves on, and we hear here where he's talking about the end of the age in general. So my first thought this week, when I read today's passage and I put it in context with all of the previous verses in chapter 24, my first thought was, wow, this might be a good time to dip into the waters of end-time prophecy. After all, that was one of the suggested sermon topics a couple months ago when I did a survey. So I thought, yeah, that sounds interesting. Let's get into a discussion of the relative merits of pre-tribulational, premillennialism, and mid-tribulational premillennialism, and partial pre-tribulational premillennialism, and post-tribulational premillennialism, and postmillennialism, and amillennialism. And then I started to put that list together, and I thought, holy moly, I won't be able to stay awake for this. So maybe that might be a good sermon series sometime, but not for the first Sunday in Advent. So if you're disappointed, I'm sorry. But I think I see more gratitude than disappointment. Now today's gospel, though, does have to do with something that is entirely appropriate for the first Sunday in Advent. And we already started talking about it with children's time. It has to do with waiting. And by and large, I'm going to speak for myself and generalize for all people because that's always safe to do. By and large, I'm going to say we're not always really good at waiting. Are we? How many of you here like waiting? Anybody? Does anybody go to the store and they get in the checkout line and there's 10 people ahead of them and they say, all right, I get to stand here. All right. Very practical. And how many of us, when we go to the doctor and we find out it's going to be like a half-hour wait, we say, all right, I get to wait. You can catch up on magazines from last year. Not many. And I think it starts as a child. Again, speaking for myself. It starts when we first have that wait between Thanksgiving and Christmas. As a child, Thanksgiving was important, yes, you get to see family, blah, blah, blah. But that meant that Christmas was coming. Now, Thanksgiving, since the 40s anyway, Thanksgiving has always been on the 4th Thursday of November. So it's always going to fall, by my calculation, between the 22nd and the 28th. This year is what they call a late Thanksgiving. But a little known fact is that regardless of the date when Thanksgiving falls, to a child it is always 112 days until Christmas. That's what I figured out once as a kid. It's a long way. And it's not just Christmas either. As a kid, the last day of school, another much anticipated event. That was always like 1,000 days away. I think it was like that for some teachers, too. Or maybe it was just my teachers. No, I don't want to think about that. And then your birthday. Your birthday's like a couple 100 days away. All the time. So we wait. And we wonder why nobody's marking off the days on the calendar. Because it just drags on. And then we get to be a little bit older and we start looking ahead to other things. Maybe we start looking ahead to when we turn 16. We get to have our driver's license. Look ahead to turning 18, 21. Look ahead to graduation. All of these things are like just close enough that you can sort of see them, but they're still so far off that it just takes forever, it seems. And then when we get older, maybe we're waiting for a big trip that we have planned. We're waiting for a wedding. Maybe we're waiting for a baby to be born. Baby's another good one. Doctors tell us that pregnancy lasts 9 months, right? We know it's at least a year. Maybe more. And sometimes we're waiting for things that aren't so fun. Maybe we're waiting for surgery. Waiting for test results to come back. Maybe we're even just waiting to know if we've been hired after we went for a job interview. And it takes forever. Waiting is hard. And sometimes we get so wrapped up in it that life seems to be about waiting for that next milestone to come. The next big event that's going to finally give meaning to our lives. And when that happens, we lose track of living in the now. I talked a little bit earlier about end times prophecies. This looking ahead, this waiting, this anxiety is what happens to people who get so wrapped up in that idea of end time prophecy. You know, there's literally thousands of books out there. You go on Amazon and type that in, and you'll see the list. Like 4,000 books, I think, something like that. And there's complex charts, and there's timelines, and there's computer programs. There's all sorts of stuff geared to people who want to know about that. They're there because people are waiting, and they don't like waiting in the dark. And they're convinced that if they find the right book, the right writer, the right pastor, the right chart or the right timeline, then they will have insight, and they will know what's going to happen and when. And unfortunately, there are people out there who are willing to tell them just what they want to hear. They're willing to tell them that, hey, I cracked the code. Despite the fact that we just read in Matthew 24:36, Jesus makes as clear a definitive statement as Jesus ever does. By that I mean Jesus is not always known for being direct. You know, he's the one you can ask about the weather, and he's telling you about, he's making a parable out of it. But at 24:36, Jesus says, about that day and hour, no one knows. Neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. That's direct. Note what Jesus does not say. He does not say, but some of you will be able to figure it out ahead of time. And he does not say, but my Father is going to leave you clues that will give you the answer if you're smart enough. He says, no one knows.
No one except God himself. God's not talking. Now there's theological significance to that because in the centuries leading up to the coming of Jesus, Jewish scholars had debated among themselves whether God would set the date for the end of the world on his own or whether there would have to be some human cooperation in it. And Jesus answered that by saying, no, it's just God. So stop asking. You're going to have to wait. And there's that word again, wait. And if we think about it logically, we know that other people don't have the answers to this. As you look back, and history is littered with failed end-of-the-world predictions. There's over 50 in the last century alone. And there's a surprising number of multiple predictions from people who claim that when they made their first prediction, they made an error in their calculation, so now it's going to be this day. And then when this day doesn't happen, well, I forgot about this, and now it's going to be this day. Eventually, those people wise up enough to put it someday after they're going to be dead. It's less embarrassing. Best one I read was a guy who claimed the world. He made 2 predictions for the end of the world. After the second one went by, he said, well, actually there was a transformation of the world that happened on that day, but nobody noticed. You have to give him points for creativity. Even though that happens, people still have this burning desire. They want to know. Now, the counter to that is that it doesn't matter. The answer to the hunger to predict the return of Jesus and the end of time, the answer to all of that is to say, what difference does it make? Now don't get me wrong, obviously the end of the age does make a difference then, when it happens. But what difference does it make now? Does it affect how we live our lives? Should it? I mean, other than possibly running up a cosmically huge credit card bill, if you knew the world was ending next month, how would it affect your life? Do you know that? Would we resolve to be more kind, more charitable, and more compassionate? Those are things we should be doing now, regardless. Would we work more diligently to bring about the kingdom of God, to live into the kingdom of God if we knew the end was near? We should be doing that now. Would we love more and hate less? Would we be more tolerant? Would we judge people less? You know what I'm going to say. We should be doing that now. We're not good at waiting. We shouldn't be. Because waiting is a passive act. Waiting means you're just sitting there until something happens. And all we need to do is look around. All we need to do is look at the news. All we need to do is look in our neighborhood. And we would know that there's too much to be done in this broken world for us to be able to just sit back and wait. Waiting means you're biding your time. And that time has been given to us as a gift from God. Not just so that we can enjoy and experience life ourselves, but also so that we have time to show grace and mercy to strangers and love to one another. In this season of Advent, as we once again anticipate the coming of Jesus, as we remember and celebrate the coming of the Messiah, let's not wait. Let's do. Let's not wait. Let's help. Let's not wait. Let's seek justice and mercy for all God.